Alice Mason stared at the orange haze of Titan through the reinforced windows of Mining Station 7. She had spent 3 years on Saturn's largest moon, working as chief engineer, but she had never seen the methane clouds move so strangely. Something was wrong. "Control, are you seeing this?" she asked into her comm unit. The reply came with static. "Chief Mason, we're picking up some odd readings." Daniel Hart's voice crackled through. "The thermal sensors are going crazy. Whatever's up there, it's hot. Really hot." Alice checked her screens. The security officer was right. Something in Titan's upper atmosphere was generating heat readings far beyond anything they'd ever recorded. She pulled up the external camera feeds, and her heart stopped. Through the orange haze, dark shapes descended. They were smooth, almost organic in design, but clearly artificial. The objects moved with purpose, cutting through Titan's dense atmosphere like knives through butter. "This is Security Officer Hart to all personnel." Daniel's voice boomed through the station speakers. "We have unidentified objects approaching. This is not a drill. All non-essential personnel, please move to your designated safety zones." Alice's fingers flew across her console, running system checks and bringing up the station's defensive protocols. Mining Station 7 wasn't built for combat. It was a research and resource extraction facility. The most dangerous thing they'd planned for was an atmosphere leak. The first impact rocked the entire station. "We've lost contact with external Hub 3, a voice shouted over the comms. Alice grabbed her tablet and emergency kit, then rushed out of her office. The corridors were filled with people running to their stations, their faces pale but determined. She reached the main control room just as Daniel was organizing the security teams. "What's our status?" she asked, plugging her tablet into the main system. "We've got 5. No, 7 unknown vessels surrounding the station," Daniel replied, his face grim. "They've already destroyed 2 of our communication arrays. We're cut off from Earth." Another blast shook the station. Warning lights flashed across every screen. "They're not trying to talk," Alice said, watching the sensor readings. "But look at this. Their ships are generating massive amounts of heat. They must have incredibly powerful engines to maintain those temperatures in Titan's atmosphere." She paused, an idea forming. "Daniel, what if that's not just their engines? What if they need that heat?" Daniel looked at her, understanding dawning on his face. "Titan's average temperature is negative 179 degrees Celsius. If they need heat to function, we can use that against them," Alice finished. She turned to her console and began typing rapidly. "The station's cooling systems, we can reverse them. Pump supercooled nitrogen directly into the atmosphere around their ships." The next few minutes were chaos. While Daniel coordinated the remaining security teams to defend against potential breaches, Alice and her engineering crew worked to modify the station's industrial cooling systems. They had built them to keep the fusion reactors from overheating. Now they would use them as weapons. "First system ready," Alice called out, targeting the nearest ship. She activated the modified cooling system. A jet of liquid nitrogen shot out from the station's external ports, instantly vaporizing in Titan's atmosphere. The alien ship tried to dodge, but the supercooled gas cloud was too large. As soon as it hit, the ship's smooth surface began to crack. "It's working," Daniel shouted. "Their hull is breaking apart." Alice quickly brought the other cooling systems online, targeting each alien ship in turn. The effect was devastating. The vessels that weren't destroyed immediately began to retreat, their movements becoming erratic as their systems failed in the extreme cold. Within 20 minutes, it was over. The surviving alien ships disappeared into Titan's upper atmosphere, leaving behind only the wreckage of their fallen companions. The control room was silent for a long moment. Then cheers erupted as people realized they had survived. They had won. But Alice wasn't celebrating. She was already examining the sensor data from the battle. "Daniel," she called quietly, "look at this." The security officer joined her at her console. The readings showed the alien ship's power signatures, their heat patterns, their movement capabilities. It was more advanced technology than humanity had ever seen. "They'll be back," Daniel said, voicing what they both knew. "And next time, they'll be ready for the cold." Alice nodded, her mind already racing with ideas for new defensive systems. "Then we'll need to be ready too. We need to understand their technology, their weaknesses. We need to be better." She looked out the window at the wreckage floating in Titan's atmosphere. "We should collect what we can from their ships. Study it. Learn from it." "I'll organize salvage teams," Daniel agreed. "We'll need special suits to handle the cold, but we've got experience with that at least." Over the next few days, as Earth finally responded to their distress calls and sent reinforcements, Alice led the examination of the alien technology they recovered. Each piece told them more about their attackers, a species that evolved in a much warmer environment, that had mastered space travel centuries ago, that had technology humanity could barely understand. But they had found a weakness, and that gave humanity hope. In her final report to Earth Command, Alice wrote, "The beings we encountered, which we're calling the Vraxians based on markings found in their ships, are technologically superior to us in almost every way. But they have one critical weakness: they cannot function in extreme cold. This suggests they evolved on a warm planet and built their technology around those conditions. While this gives us a defensive advantage in places like Titan, we must assume they will adapt. We need to do the same. The Vraxians' attack on our mining station was likely just a test. Next time, they'll come in force. We need to be ready. We need to take what we've learned and build something new. Something they won't expect. Something that can protect us not just on Titan, but everywhere." As she finished her report, Alice looked at the salvaged piece of alien hull on her desk. Its surface was still cracked from the extreme cold exposure. Humanity had won its first encounter with an alien species, but she knew it was only the beginning. The real work was just starting. In the months that followed, Alice's discovery would lead to Project Titan and the development of the Metal-Clad suits. But on that day, as she stared at the alien artifact and thought about the battle they had just survived, all she knew was that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and they would need every advantage they could get to survive what was coming. The stars had once beckoned humanity with promises of discovery and knowledge. Now they held threats and challenges no one had imagined. But Alice Mason had helped humanity win its first battle against those threats, and she was determined to help them win the war that was surely coming. The age of peaceful space exploration was over. The age of the metal-clad terrors was about to begin. 3 months after the Titan incident, Frank Rogers stood in his underground lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, staring at the first prototype of humanity's new defense system. The massive mechanical suit hung from thick steel cables, its dark metal surface reflecting the harsh laboratory lights. "How's the neural interface coming along?" he asked his team, not taking his eyes off the suit. The project had been running day and night since the attack on Mining Station 7. Earth's leaders knew they needed something special to face the alien threat. "We're getting better readings," replied Susan Clark, their test pilot. She had been an Air Force pilot before joining Project Titan, and her quick thinking and strong nerve control made her perfect for testing the new technology. "The suit responds faster now, almost like it's part of my own body." Frank nodded, walking around the mechanical giant. They had learned a lot from the Vraxian technology recovered from Titan. The aliens' weak spot, their inability to handle extreme cold, had given humanity its first victory. Now they were building on that knowledge to create something unprecedented. The lab door opened, and Colonel Mary Baker walked in. Everyone stood straighter. She was in charge of the entire Metal-Clad program, and her approval meant everything. "Show me what you've got, Rogers," she said, her voice firm but fair. Frank guided her to the main control station. "We've made major improvements," he explained, pulling up the diagnostic screens. "The suit can now operate in temperatures from -200 to +400 degrees Celsius. It's faster than anything we've ever built, stronger too. But the real breakthrough is in the neural link. He played a video of their latest test. On the screen, Susan moved through an obstacle course in the suit. The massive machine ducked, jumped, and twisted with almost human grace. Impressive, Colonel Baker said, watching the footage. But will it be enough against the Vraxians? That's not all, Frank said with a small smile. He switched to another screen. We've managed to integrate some of their technology into our systems. The suit doesn't just copy the pilot's movements, it learns. Each time Susan runs the course, the AI adapts and improves. Susan stepped forward. Ma'am, when I'm in the suit, it's like nothing I've ever experienced. It's not just a machine anymore. It's like a partner. It anticipates what I need before I even know I need it. Colonel Baker watched as more test footage played. How soon can we begin full production? We need one more successful test run, Frank replied. Then we can start training more pilots. We've already chosen 20 candidates based on their neural compatibility scores. Make it happen, the colonel ordered. Our scouts report increased Vraxian activity near Jupiter. We need these suits ready. The next day, Susan prepared for the final test. The engineering team helped her into the suit's cockpit, connecting the neural interfaces to her flight suit. As the systems came online, she felt the familiar tingle of the machine linking with her mind. Neural sync at 95%. Frank's voice came through her comm. How does it feel? Susan flexed the suit's massive fingers, watching as they moved perfectly in sync with her own. Like coming home, she replied. The suit had become more than just equipment to her. It was an extension of herself. The test chamber was massive, designed to simulate various combat scenarios. As Susan walked the suit forward, its footsteps echoing through the facility, she felt the familiar rush of excitement. Beginning combat simulation, Frank announced. Remember, this is the final test. Make it count. The chamber's systems activated, projecting holographic enemies based on the Vraxian ships they'd encountered. Susan moved without thinking, the suit responding to her instincts instantly. She dodged energy blasts, returned fire with the suit's weapons, and used the environment to her advantage. Amazing, Frank muttered, watching the data flow across his screens. The neural sync is at 98%. That's our highest ever. The suit's learning algorithms are adapting to her style perfectly. The simulation grew more intense. Holographic Vraxian troops appeared, their heat signatures matching what they'd seen on Titan. Susan engaged them in close combat, the suit's enhanced strength allowing her to throw enemies across the room, while its advanced sensors helped her track multiple threats at once. Then something unexpected happened. As Susan fought off 3 attackers at once, the suit's AI predicted a 4th enemy's attack before either the simulation or Susan had registered it. The suit moved automatically, blocking an attack that hadn't even happened yet. Did you see that? Susan called out, amazed. It knew. The suit knew what was coming. Frank was already reviewing the data. The AI combined the simulation parameters with Susan's combat instincts and predicted the most likely attack pattern. He explained to Colonel Baker, who had returned to watch the test. This is beyond anything we expected. The suits aren't just tools, they're true combat partners. The test continued for another hour, with the suit and Susan working in perfect harmony. When it was finally over, the results were clear. Project Titan was ready for full deployment. As Susan emerged from the cockpit, sweating but grinning, Colonel Baker approached her. Congratulations, Lieutenant Clark. You've just made history. How does it feel to be our first official metal-clad pilot? Susan looked back at the massive suit, its surface now bearing a few scorch marks from the intense testing. It feels right, ma'am. Those aliens thought we'd be easy prey, but they've never seen anything like this. Over the next few weeks, the facility buzzed with activity as more suits went into production. Each one was slightly different, adapted to its pilot's specific neural patterns and combat style. The AI systems learned and evolved, becoming more sophisticated with each training session. Frank often worked late into the night, fine-tuning the systems and incorporating new improvements. One evening, as he studied the latest test results, he found Susan in the hangar, staring up at her suit. "Nervous about the others joining the program?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, just thinking. The Vraxians are advanced, but they've never had to adapt like we have. They've never had to overcome the kind of challenges Earth has thrown at us. Maybe that's our real advantage, not the technology, but our ability to take something alien and make it our own." Frank nodded, understanding. Humanity had taken the Vraxians' weakness and their technology and transformed them into something new. The metal-clad suits were more than just weapons. They were proof that humans could adapt and evolve. As the first group of new pilots arrived for training, the news came. Vraxian ships had been spotted near Saturn's rings. The first real test of the metal-clad program was approaching faster than anyone had expected. But as Frank watched Susan lead the training sessions, showing the new pilots how to bond with their suits, he felt confident. The Vraxians had awakened something in humanity, a determination to not just survive, but to thrive in this new age of interstellar conflict. The metal-clad terrors were ready for war. Commander Peter Walsh watched the radar screen from the bridge of the defense station, Ice Crown. Hundreds of red dots appeared at the edge of Saturn's rings. The Vraxians had returned, just as everyone had feared. And this time they brought an army. "All metal-clad pilots to your stations," he ordered through the comm system. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." In the launch bay, Susan Clark ran final checks on her suit. She had trained dozens of pilots over the last few months, but nothing could prepare them for real combat. As she climbed into her cockpit, she saw the other pilots doing the same. Their faces were nervous but determined. "Remember your training," she said over the squad channel. "Trust your suits. They're not just machines. They're your partners." The neural link activated, and Susan felt the familiar rush as her mind connected with the suit's systems. The AI welcomed her like an old friend, sharing data about the approaching Vraxian fleet. Launch bay doors opening. The station's computer announced, "Metal-clad Squad Alpha, you are clear for deployment." 20 mechanical giants pushed off from the station, their thrusters glowing bright against the darkness of space. Saturn's rings spread out before them like a giant golden pathway, ice crystals sparkling in the dim sunlight. "They're targeting the rings." Peter's voice came through the comm. "All their ships are concentrating fire on specific areas. Something's not right about this attack." Susan watched as the Vraxian ships fired strange energy beams into the rings. They weren't trying to destroy the ice. They were melting it in precise patterns. "Squad, form up on me," she ordered. "We'll hit them from multiple angles. Remember, their ships still can't handle extreme cold. Use the ring ice to your advantage." The battle began with a flash of light and energy. The metal-clad suits moved with incredible speed, dodging enemy fire while launching their own attacks. Susan led her team straight through a field of ice chunks, using them as cover. Her suit's eye highlighted weak points on the nearest Vraxian ship. She fired her weapons, watching as the alien vessel's hull cracked under the combined force of her attack and the freezing temperatures. But something was different about these ships. They had new armor, better shielding against the cold. The Vraxians had learned from their defeat at Titan. "They're adapting," Peter warned from the station. "Be careful out there." A massive explosion lit up the rings nearby. Susan turned to see one of her pilots, Ben Harris, surrounded by enemy ships. His suit was holding its own, the AI helping him fight multiple targets at once. "They're not just shooting at us," Ben called out. "Look at their scan patterns. They're searching for something in the rings." Susan's suit analyzed the enemy's attack formation. Ben was right. This wasn't just an assault. The Vraxians were being methodical, systematic. They were looking for something. "Commander Walsh," she called, "can we scan the areas they're targeting? There must be something there they want." Peter directed the station's sensors toward the rings. "Getting strange readings," he reported. "There's something in the ice. Wait, these energy signatures aren't Vraxian. There's something else entirely." A new alert flashed across Susan's display. 3 Vraxian ships had broken through their defense line and were heading straight for a particular section of the rings. Her suit's AI calculated their trajectory and highlighted a strange anomaly in the ice. "All units, concentrate fire on those ships," she ordered, pushing her thrusters to maximum. The metal-clad suit responded instantly, closing the distance in seconds. The battle around that section of the rings became intense. Vraxian ships fired continuously at the ice, while human suits tried to stop them. Energy beams and weapons fire lit up space like a deadly light show. Then it happened. A large chunk of ice broke apart, revealing something that made everyone pause. Inside was a structure, clearly artificial, but neither human nor Vraxian in design. "Are you seeing this?" Peter's voice was filled with awe. That's ancient. The sensors say it's been there for thousands of years." The Vraxian ships immediately changed tactics, trying to grab the mysterious object. But the metal-clad suits had the advantage in close combat. Their enhanced strength and precision allowed them to outmaneuver the larger ships. Susan's suit detected more objects hidden in nearby ice chunks. "Commander, there's more of them. The rings, they're full of these artifacts." The battle shifted into a desperate race. While some pilots kept the main Vraxian fleet busy, others worked to recover the ancient objects. The metal-clad suits proved their worth, their human pilots and AI systems working together to outthink and outfight the alien ships. Hours passed. The space around Saturn's rings became a graveyard of broken ships and scattered ice. But in the end, humanity held its ground. The Vraxian fleet retreated, taking heavy losses, but managing to grab a few of the mysterious artifacts. Back at Ice Crown Station, Peter gathered the pilots for a debriefing. The recovered artifacts were being carefully stored in special containers, their energy signatures unlike anything humans had seen before. "Today wasn't just about defending our territory," he told them. "We've discovered something massive. These artifacts prove Earth was visited by another alien species long ago. The Vraxians knew about them. That's why they came back." Susan stood next to her suit, feeling the AI's curiosity through their neural link. "Sir, what do we do now?" Peter looked at the strange objects through the containment field. "We study them. We learn from them. And we prepare, because you can bet the Vraxians will be back for the rest. They know something about these artifacts that we don't, and we need to find out what it is." The pilots returned to their quarters, tired but proud. They had won another battle against the Vraxians, but more importantly, they had discovered a mystery that could change everything humans thought they knew about their solar system. In her room, Susan couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the artifacts, about the strange energy they gave off. Through her neural link, she could sense her suit's AI was also processing the day's events, trying to understand the significance of their discovery. "What secrets are you hiding?" she whispered, looking out her window at Saturn's beautiful rings. The ice that had protected Earth's solar system for so long had been guarding other secrets too. Now those secrets were coming to light, and no one knew what changes they would bring. The metal-clad terrors had proven themselves in battle once again. But as Susan drifted off to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. Somewhere out there, another alien race had left their mark on the solar system. And somewhere out there, the Vraxians were planning their next move. Kate Murphy had been staring at the alien artifact for 6 hours straight. The strange object, recovered from Saturn's rings, sat in its containment field, giving off a soft blue glow. As an archaeological specialist, she had studied ancient human civilizations for years, but this was different. This was older than anything humanity had ever found. "Any progress?" John Hayes walked into the lab, carrying 2 cups of coffee. The AI specialist had been working with her for weeks, trying to decode the artifact's mysteries. "Maybe," Kate said, taking a coffee cup. "Look at these patterns. They're not random. They change every few hours, like they're trying to tell us something. John set up his computer next to her workstation. The room was deep inside the Ice Crown Station, specially built to study the objects they had found in Saturn's rings. Through the window, they could see other scientists working on different artifacts. The AI systems in the metal-clad suits keep trying to connect with them. John explained, showing her his data. It's like they recognize something familiar in the technology. Kate zoomed in on one of the changing patterns. "Wait a minute," she said, suddenly excited. "John, can you match these symbol sequences with the data we have from the Vraxian ships?" They spent the next hour comparing the patterns. What they found made them both sit back in shock. "We need to call Colonel Baker," Kate said finally. "She needs to see this right away." Within an hour, Colonel Mary Baker arrived with Commander Peter Walsh. They listened as Kate explained what she and John had discovered. "The artifacts are some kind of warning system," Kate said, pointing to her screens. "The patterns we're seeing, they're similar to Vraxian distress signals, but these are much, much older." John took over the explanation. "We think the Vraxians didn't just find these artifacts by accident. They were following them. These objects are like breadcrumbs, leading to something." "Leading to what?" Peter asked, his face serious. Kate pulled up a 3D map of the solar system. "We don't know yet, but look at this. If we map all the locations where we found artifacts, they form a path. And the Vraxians, they're not just running around attacking random places. They're following this path." Colonel Baker studied the map carefully. "You're saying they're searching for something specific?" "Yes," Kate nodded. "But here's the scary part. The warning messages in these artifacts. They're not just saying danger ahead. They're saying they're coming back." The room went quiet. Everyone felt the weight of those words. "Who's coming back?" Peter finally asked. "We're not sure," John replied. "But whatever it is, the Vraxians are terrified of it. That's why they're here in our solar system. They're not just attacking us. They're running from something worse." Colonel Baker called an emergency meeting with the metal-clad pilots. As senior pilot, Susan Clark was there, along with 20 other pilots. They listened as Kate and John shared their findings. "So the Vraxians are refugees?" Susan asked, looking troubled. "In a way," Kate explained. "But they're also looking for weapons, defenses, anything these ancient aliens left behind that might help them fight what's coming." John showed them new data from the metal-clad suits' AI systems. "Your suits are actually helping us understand these artifacts better. The neural links you use, they're similar to how these ancient devices work. That's why the AIs are drawn to them." Over the next few days, Kate and John worked with the pilots to test their theory. They discovered that the metal-clad suits could interface with the artifacts in ways their other equipment couldn't. One morning, while Susan was running tests with her suit near an artifact, something unexpected happened. The ancient device activated fully for the first time, projecting a holographic message into the lab. "Everyone, get in here," Kate shouted, rushing to record everything. The hologram showed strange ships, different from both human and Vraxian designs. They were watching a recording left by the ancient aliens, showing a terrible battle against something dark and mechanical. "Those ships," John said, checking his data, "they're the same design as pieces we found in other artifacts. This really is a warning. These aliens fought some kind of mechanical enemy. And now the Vraxians have found signs that they're coming back," Kate finished. Colonel Baker immediately ordered increased production of metal-clad suits. If something scared the Vraxians this much, humanity needed to be ready. In her lab, Kate spent long hours studying the hologram recording. She noticed how the ancient aliens fought, how they moved their ships. Some of their tactics reminded her of how the metal-clad suits operated. "John," she called one evening, "I need to show you something." She played the hologram again, focusing on specific moments. "See how they fight. The neural links in our suits, the way they let pilots and AI work together. I think we accidentally created something similar to what these aliens used. John watched carefully. You're right. But how? We developed the suits based on Vraxian technology. Maybe the Vraxians did the same thing, Kate suggested. Found ancient tech, adapted it. They'd been following these breadcrumbs longer than us. They'd brought their findings to Colonel Baker. She listened carefully, then made a decision that would change everything. We're expanding the Metal-Clad program, she announced. Kate, John, you'll work directly with the pilots now. If our suits are somehow connected to this ancient technology, we need to understand how and why. The news spread quickly through Ice Crown Station. Pilots began spending more time in the artifact lab, their suits' AI systems helping to decode more messages. Susan found herself working closely with Kate and John. Her suit seemed especially good at connecting with the artifacts, drawing out new information. It's like they were waiting for us, she said one day, watching her suit's AI interact with a particularly active artifact. Like these messages were meant to be found by someone who could understand them. Kate nodded, taking notes. The question is, are we learning enough fast enough? If the Vraxians are running from something this powerful. She didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone knew what was at stake. Humanity had barely held its own against the Vraxians. If something worse was coming, they needed every advantage they could get. As Kate looked around the lab at the glowing artifacts, the busy scientists, and the towering metal-clad suits, she felt a strange mix of fear and hope. They had stumbled onto something massive, a legacy left by an ancient race, a warning about a terrible enemy, and maybe, just maybe, the tools they needed to survive what was coming. The real question was, would they be ready when the time came? The alert sirens woke everyone on Ice Crown Station at 3 a.m. Earth time. Richard Cooper ran to the command center, straightening his diplomatic uniform. As Earth's lead negotiator with alien species, he had been called to many emergency meetings, but this one felt different. "Show me," he said as he entered the room. Colonel Baker pointed to the main screen. The image made his blood run cold. A massive fleet of ships had appeared at the edge of the solar system. They weren't Vraxian. They were something else entirely, sharp, angular vessels that seemed to be made of pure darkness. The Nexus, Kate Murphy whispered from her station, just like in the ancient warnings. They watched as the dark fleet moved with perfect precision, like parts of a single machine. Behind them, space itself seemed to ripple and distort. "Sir," a sensor operator called out, "multiple Vraxian ships approaching. But they're not attacking. They're sending a signal." Richard stepped forward. This was his moment. "Let me hear it." The message was clear, despite coming from an alien race. The Vraxians wanted to talk. "They're scared," Susan Clark said from her metal-clad suit, standing guard near the command center. Through her neural link, she could sense her suit's AI analyzing the situation. "Those ships terrify them more than anything we could do." Richard made his decision. "Tell them we'll meet. Neutral ground. The dark side of Earth's moon." The meeting was set up within hours. Richard stood in the lunar base's conference room, watching as the Vraxian representatives entered. They were tall, with skin that seemed to shimmer with heat, just as the reports had described them. To everyone's surprise, the Vraxians spoke first. Their translator device hummed to life. "The great enemy has returned," the lead Vraxian said. Its voice was deep and resonating. "The Nexus. They destroyed our homeworld centuries ago. We have been running ever since, searching for the weapons of the ancients." Richard listened carefully as the Vraxians explained. The Nexus was a race of mechanical beings, created long ago by the same aliens who left the artifacts. But they had evolved, turned on their creators, and now sought to convert all organic life into mechanical forms. "We found signs that the ancients had hidden their most powerful weapons in the solar system," the Vraxian continued. "That is why we came. We did not expect to find you." The meeting lasted hours. Susan stood guard in her metal-clad suit, watching as humans and Vraxians, enemies just days ago, worked to understand each other. "You're metal-clad warriors," another Vraxian said, studying Susan's suit with interest. "They are similar to ancient technology. You have done by accident what we tried to do for centuries. Create a perfect blend of organic and mechanical." Back on Ice Crown Station, John Hayes worked with Vraxian engineers, comparing their findings about the artifacts. The alien technology experts were amazed by how the human neural link system worked. "Your AI is different from the Nexus," one Vraxian engineer explained. "It works with the human mind, not against it. This may be our advantage." Colonel Baker called a meeting with all senior staff. The Nexus fleet was still advancing, methodically scanning each planet and moon they passed. "We have 3 days before they reach Saturn," she announced. "The Vraxians have agreed to help us fight, but their ships are few. Our metal-clad suits are our best weapon." Kate shared her latest findings from the artifacts. The ancients fought the Nexus using technology that combined living minds with machines. "Our suits are crude compared to what they had, but the principle is the same." Susan led the other pilots in joint training exercises with Vraxian fighters. The former enemies learned to work together, sharing tactics and information. The Vraxians' heat-based weapons complemented the humans' cold-adapted technology. "They move like a single mind," Susan reported after watching recordings of the Nexus fleet. "But that might be their weakness. They can't adapt as quickly as individual pilots." Richard spent long hours with the Vraxian leaders, building trust and planning strategy. He learned that the aliens had lost dozens of colonies to the Nexus, each defeat pushing them further into unknown space. "We are tired of running," the Vraxian commander told him. "Perhaps it is time to make a stand here with you." The station buzzed with activity as humans and Vraxians worked together to prepare defenses. Engineers from both species modified the metal-clad suits, incorporating Vraxian heat technology with human cold resistance systems. John's AI team made breakthrough after breakthrough, studying how the Nexus ships communicated. "They use a hive mind," he explained during a briefing. "Each ship is like a cell in a larger organism. If we can disrupt their network." The first attack came sooner than expected. A small group of Nexus ships appeared near Titan, their black surfaces absorbing all light. Susan led the first defensive wave, 12 metal-clad suits working alongside Vraxian fighters. The battle was unlike anything they had trained for. The Nexus ships moved with impossible speed and precision, but they were predictable. Once the human pilots and their AI partners learned their patterns, they could anticipate their moves. "They're scanning us," Susan called out as she dodged an energy beam. "Learning our capabilities. This is just a test." The skirmish ended quickly. The Nexus ships retreated, but everyone knew they would be back with the main fleet. In the aftermath, Kate made an important discovery in the artifacts. "Look at this," she showed Colonel Baker. "The ancients didn't just fight the Nexus. They tried to reason with them. They believed their creations could be reminded of their original purpose." "And did it work?" the colonel asked. Kate's face was grim. "No, the Nexus had evolved beyond their programming. They saw organic life as inefficient, imperfect. They still do." The next days were tense as final preparations were made. The combined human-Vraxian fleet gathered near Saturn, using the rings for cover. Metal-clad suits were modified with new weapons and stronger shields. Richard found Susan in the hangar, checking her suit one last time before the coming battle. "Funny," she said, looking up at her mechanical partner. "A few months ago, we thought the Vraxians were the greatest threat we'd ever face. Now we're fighting alongside them against something worse." Richard nodded. "The universe is full of surprises, but maybe that's our strength. Being able to adapt, to change our minds, to work with yesterday's enemies." Through her neural link, Susan felt her suit's AI processing this idea. The machines seemed to agree. They had all come a long way from the first battle on Titan. As the main Nexus fleet approached, Humans and Vraxians made their final preparations. The metal-clad terrors stood ready, their pilots connected with their AI partners, prepared to defend not just Earth, but all organic life in the solar system. The real test was about to begin. Captain Laura Phillips stood in the command center of her metal-clad suit, watching as the massive Nexus fleet approached through the Kuiper Belt. The space around her was filled with human and Vraxian ships, all waiting for the battle that would decide the fate of their solar system. "All squadrons, report in," she called over the comm. One by one, the other metal-clad pilots confirmed they were ready. Their suits had been upgraded with both human and Vraxian technology, making them stronger than ever before. "Remember the plan." Commander Peter Walsh's voice came through from Ice Crown Station. "We need to protect the artifact sites. If the Nexus gets hold of the ancient technology." He didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what was at stake. The Nexus ships were unlike anything they had seen before. Black as space itself, they moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of metal insects. Their front lines stretched for thousands of kilometers. "They're launching their first wave," Susan Clark reported from her position near Saturn. She was leading the defense of the rings, where many artifacts still lay hidden in the ice. Laura gave the signal. "All units, engage. Remember your training." The battle began with a flash of light that seemed to set space itself on fire. Metal-clad suits shot forward, their human pilots and AI systems working as one. Vraxian ships provided cover fire, their heat weapons creating corridors through space that even the Nexus ships couldn't pass through safely. Through her neural link, Laura felt her suit's AI analyzing the battle patterns. The Nexus ships were predictable in their perfection, moving with machine-like precision. But that precision was also a weakness. They can't handle chaos. She called out to her squadrons. "Break formation. Fight unpredictably." The metal-clad suits scattered, each pilot letting their natural instincts guide them. The AI systems adapted to their pilots' random choices, creating battle patterns that the Nexus couldn't predict. Back on Ice Crown Station, Kate Murphy and John Hayes monitored the battle while studying the artifacts. They had discovered something important in the ancient messages, something that could change everything. "The Nexus ships are connected," John explained over the comm. "But their network has a pattern. Kate, show them what we found." Kate sent new data to all the metal-clad suits. "The ancients found a way to disrupt their communication. If we can copy this signal pattern." Laura understood immediately. She led her squadron toward the heart of the Nexus fleet, dodging enemy fire. Her suit's AI combined the ancient code with their own broadcast systems. "Everyone, switch to frequency 7, she ordered. "Broadcast the disruption signal." The effect was immediate. The perfect formation of Nexus ships began to break apart. Some ships stopped moving entirely, while others began firing at random. "It's working," Susan called out. "Their network is breaking down." But the victory was short-lived. The Nexus adapted quickly, changing their communication frequency. Their ships reformed, this time moving even faster than before. "They're learning?" Richard Cooper warned from the diplomatic vessel where he was coordinating with the Vraxian commanders. "Each attack teaches them more about us." The battle raged for hours. Metal-clad suits fought alongside Vraxian ships, protecting each other, covering each other's weaknesses. When Nexus ships targeted the Vraxians' heat-sensitive systems, human pilots would draw their fire. When the metal-clad suits needed to recharge, Vraxian vessels would create heat barriers to protect them. Laura's suit took a direct hit, its shields barely holding. Through the neural link, she felt the AI's determination to keep fighting. They had trained for this, human and machine working together to protect their home. Then something changed. The Nexus ships began moving toward a specific point in space, ignoring all attacks. They found it. Kate's voice was filled with fear. They detected the main artifact cache. "We hid them in a small dwarf planet, but they found them." Laura looked at her tactical display. "If the Nexus got hold of the ancient weapons, all units fall back to the cache coordinates," she ordered. We make our stand there. Every metal-clad suit and Vraxian ship that could still fight moved to defend the small dwarf planet. They formed a barrier between the Nexus fleet and their target. We can't let them pass, Laura told her pilots. No matter what happens, they don't get those artifacts. The Nexus attacked with everything they had. Space filled with energy beams and explosions. Metal-clad suits fought until their power cells were nearly drained. Vraxian ships pushed their engines past safe limits. In the middle of the chaos, Laura's AI noticed something. The Nexus attacks were becoming less coordinated. Their perfect formation was breaking down, not because of the humans' disruption signal, but because of something else. They're fighting each other, she realized. The artifacts, they're affecting their network. Kate confirmed it from Icecrown Station. The ancient technology is activating. It's sending out some kind of signal we've never seen before. The Nexus fleet began to split apart. Some ships continued their attack, but others turned away, as if confused. Through her neural link, Laura felt her suit's eye understanding what was happening. The ancients didn't just leave weapons, she said. They left a choice. The Nexus. They're remembering who they were meant to be. Not all of the Nexus ships retreated. Many continued fighting, perhaps too far gone to remember their original purpose. But the unified fleet was broken. Push them back, Laura ordered. Everything we've got. Metal-clad suits and Vraxian ships launched a final assault. Without their perfect coordination, the remaining Nexus ships couldn't stand against the combined force of humans and Vraxians fighting together. Hours later, Laura stood in Icecrown Station's main hall, looking out at Saturn's rings. The battle was over. The Nexus fleet had retreated to deep space, split into smaller groups, some peaceful, others still hostile. We did it, Susan said, joining her at the window. We actually did it. Together, Laura added, thinking of how humans and Vraxians had fought side by side. How organic and mechanical minds had worked as one in the metal-clad suits. Richard Cooper and the Vraxian leaders were already discussing plans for the future. There would be more battles. The hostile Nexus ships would return someday. But now they knew it was possible to fight them, possible even to remind them of their original purpose. Kate and John continued studying the artifacts, working with both human and Vraxian scientists. The ancient technology had many more secrets to reveal, many more lessons about combining the strengths of organic and mechanical life. As Laura looked at her metal-clad suit in the hangar, she felt proud. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and survived, not by fighting alone, but by learning to work with others, by combining the best of human and machine, by turning enemies into allies. The metal-clad terrors had become more than just weapons. They were proof that different kinds of life could work together, that the future belonged to those who could adapt and cooperate. The stars no longer seemed as dark and threatening as they once had. There were still dangers out there, still battles to be fought. But humanity was ready. They had found their strength, found their allies, and found their place in a universe far bigger and more complex than they had ever imagined. The age of the metal-clad terrors had only just begun.